are on the 790 adventure. I thought I would take it for a little bit of off-road today. Nothing too crazy, but just as a frame of reference for myself about how capable this bike is compared to the 390 that I had. There's some new boots on, so my catch point in the gears isn't quite so good. But so far, it's actually handling really well. You always wonder sometimes when you make a change in bike, you know, is the bike going to be confidence inspiring? Which is a big thing off-road really. If a bike doesn't inspire confidence, you know, you just don't want to ride off-road anymore. It's not fun when you always feel like, you know, you're going to crash or something bad's going to happen. A bike needs to instill confidence first and foremost. And being a KTM, and being, you know, a mature but new platform, a confidence is exactly what this thing gives you. The suspension is good, it's firm, but not kind of jarringly so. It responds really well. You know, you hit some edges of holes and potholes. It doesn't, you know, no signs that it'll bottom out. Obviously I could be pushing harder than this, but even then I think that the limits are probably fairly high. Let's change up a gear. And the thing about it is I'm going slow here kind of on purpose. You know, it feels super balanced. You know, it doesn't feel like I need to speed up or have momentum to withhold my balance. Which again is just that thing of having the low slung tanks and that centre of gravity so spot on. You can really pick, you know, if this was technical, I would imagine that, you know, I just wouldn't have any problems navigating it. But then, you know, if you do pick up the speed a little bit and start to hit things in gravel and, you know, whatever a little bit harder, again, no worries. It's like, I'm not really a particularly experienced off-road rider. You know, I feel reasonably confident most of the time through ignorance or whatever else. But for this bike, you know, I'm not even thinking twice really about, you know, crossing this path. And oh, there's a big bump there, a little bit of firmness, but ultimately no big deal. I'm kind of purposely hitting some things rather than trying to navigate around it to see what it does. And again, just no worries. I can feel, you know, a little bit of movement in the back, but that's to be expected. I mean, I'm off-road, just gravel here and so on, it's a bit uneven. You'd expect a little bit. Oh, cool. Some kind of flow coming down here. Cool. Other section. Done. Seek out one more. A bit uneven and steady. A little bit of bike movement. A little bit of movement underneath me. I've got the stock Scorpion Rally tyres, which, you know, aren't, what are they? Maybe 60-40 at a push, 70-30 I think most would say if you're a serious off-roader, but they seem to perform quite well. You know, you get a little bit of movement on the edge of the tyre, it feels like off-road with them. You can definitely feel that there's limits there, but I'd say in dry conditions, you know, they always say mud, you know, any kind of slight off-road bias tyre, once you get mud and stuff involved, it's a different volume when it's dry. I don't think there's many roads you would really struggle with. Probably if I was pushing on here a bit and trying to get the back out, you know, it'd be a bit of an unwieldy thing. But just kind of you know, being off-road and travelling and having to traverse this, it's well capable. I do have it in off-road mode here. One thing that's nice about this bike is it remembers your settings, which is really cool, and it also doesn't, you can change them on the fly, so you know, change it between road. Sliding this there. Going between street and off-road and so on is really easy. Oh, notice there I'm not getting much. I can feel the ABS kicking in, even in this off-road mode. It's kind of saying, oh, you're not going to be able to stop in this condition, so I'm going to slow that down to you, so I can see it kind of cancelling out my front brake feedback. But again, it's making it really controlled, you know, it's thinking more than I am about the specific condition that I'm in. Oh, a little bit lost there. Use my back. rub off a little bit of speed. Sitting there rather than standing, that's fine. You know, I was in second there, you know, right down to slow. Didn't need to change down to first. It wasn't like trying to stall or anything like that, just because I've got specific about my speed, which is nice. This forgiving engine, it's just giving me a little bit of kind of engine braking there as I'm coming down. We don't want to be doing this trail like fast right now. I mean, maybe, I don't know, 2 miles. You know, there's probably a limit of, you know, you could go a little bit faster and you'd actually be in a bit of bother, or you could go a fair bit faster and really hit this trail kind of hard. KTM's like you to do that generally, and you'd probably have a lot of fun and you'd totally be fine, but I think that maybe exceeds my middle of the road skill a little bit. I think I'll let this one here. Yeah, one thing as well is the gears are fairly high. In that, you know, I'm in second this whole way. I'm going a little bit faster, a little bit slower. It's happy to stay in second. One thing you might note on my 390 that I had, actually, going to stop here. Now, on the 390 that I had, you would find situations where, you know, second was a little bit low for what you were doing in that specific case. Once you get a little bit faster, or a little bit high, alternatively, when you go a little bit slower. But in this one, you know, what's the parallel and what the kind of smoothness is there. You can really, you know, just leave it in second while you're off road. You know, probably hit. You know, you'll get into third eventually, but ultimately you can leave it there and not have to worry about changing up and down gears, which takes a little bit of a kind of complexity out of the road riding bit. I'm just going to take a second here to show you around the bike, because I think, you know, looking online when I made the purchase, I think there was some things I was almost doing blind when I originally purchased it. So I just wanted to walk around those things that aren't necessarily on the detail sheet or assumptions specifically. One of the things, I mean, for example, you know, I wasn't actually quite sure whether there was a dedicated USB switch on it. So I ended up actually buying an adapter for the 12 volt here, because it's both, which is fine, you know, it's handy to have that as a backup. But this, I thought maybe might have been only on the 890 and not on the 790, but it turns out it is on the 790, so that's cool. I changed the handguards already, not because the other ones were particularly poor, but I like kind of keeping the stock around, you know, if I change later or sell it later, you know, I've got the ability to return it to stock rather than having what looks like an ugly scuff, whatever, or having to replace that specific part. So I had these already and I fitted them. The Acerbis ones are a little bit tight, you know, they're running a little bit tight to the end here. They're a little bit small maybe, because there's quite a big componentry here with the clutch, and same on the other side. I had to run them a little bit high to fit them in, you know, quite close here, but that's okay. So yeah, they do fit, they're fine. These are, Treacherous. And you can fold them in for off-road. Didn't even bother then, because I didn't really expect to fall off. But you know, you can twist those around, which is actually really practical. Even when you're storing the bike or something and you've got a cover over the top or something, you know, you can get them out of the way, which is nice. I've got this little handlebar bag from Duristan. It's just like a, you know, waterproof steel thing, and you can attach your phone through this and click it onto the top. Or click it, I say, Velcro it onto the top, and it seems pretty secure. I put a Coolmax, or not a Coolmax, it's like a non-brand cover on the seat. And the reason, I already had this actually, but the reason why I put it on fairly quickly is fair bit of engine heat. You know, I didn't actually notice it just then, probably because I put this on. But there's definitely a fair bit of heat down by the legs and the bum. And I think that is probably just a parallel twin thing that you know, I didn't really get on the KTM. It was actually reasonably hot, no matter what, cool, no matter what you would do with it and how far you would push it. You would never feel any particular heat come through. But definitely on this one there is more heat, not excessively so. It's a hot day today. You know, I haven't noticed it at all thus far. So definitely not excessive or anything like that. But I just say it is there. I think in the winter I might actually quite like that, because you know, you get a heated seat for free. Like I said in my last video, there's, if you look around the general put togetherness of the bike and all the main things, I mean, it all looks very tidy. You know, all good looking solid parts. You know, everything's well machined. You know, the chain here seems to have pretty high quality, whatever it is. You know, that's not the nicest exhaust, but actually it's not that bad. I like the little detail here on the actual exhaust system itself. You know, you got this, whatever this is for, protection, I guess, as a secondary, but it looks quite nice. You know, your pegs here, they're nice, and they're kind of a little bit small maybe for off-road. I would potentially maybe think about changing those, but again, coming down there didn't notice it too much. But nice big flat brake pedal here. Obviously got the big slung fuel tanks, and big dual piston, or whatever the term is, brakes, and they are very strong actually. Well, for me they're very strong, because I've kind of come across from a single piston thing, yeah, you definitely feel them, and you almost need the electronics to compensate for that a little bit. Like coming down there, I probably maybe could have got the front a little bit squirrely, but the electronics was like, oh no, you don't want to pull that hard, and kind of let off a little bit of the pressure, and I was able to control it totally fine without thinking too much. You've got a full cover plate, which is quite nice. I think this specific piece wasn't on the 890, I think, and so people kind of complain about that. I was like, why the hell would you leave a gap right here? And there's some, you know, you've got your horn and bits and bobs protected behind, so people end up getting aftermarket here. On the 790, that comes as stock, so this has been redesigned, and you know, it's pretty thick, I would say. Not thick necessarily, but you know, I'd say that's pretty sufficient. I'm not considering really putting any additional bars on here. We'll see how it goes. Definitely going to drop it. We'll see how these hold up. You can replace these, obviously. So that seems to be, as you know, it's light, and you know, you're not adding more weight to the bike. That makes sense to me. From the front, you know, you've got the KTM, you know, signature front here, which I quite like. I don't mind it at all. Some people don't like that look, but I quite like it. It looks quite purposeful and off-roady, which I quite like. And with as per the 890, you've kind of got this wraparound in the old version. This was kind of an exposed airing at the front. Now that's all kind of a bit more aerodynamic and fit, and you can feel that. You know, you don't get much unnecessary wind and so on the body while you're riding it, which is cool. And it kind of hits you just on the edges of the shoulders, top part of the helmet. But that's quite a nice framing for me. I'm just under 6 foot, so it's pretty good. Right. Let's stand up this time. One thing as well is standing ergonomics. I'd say I've got fairly long arms, I don't know, maybe normal arms, I would say pretty long, and I don't feel the need for bar risers. I don't think it's really necessary. I feel very relaxed in a not a full, yeah, I mean, you can get to full stand there, but I'd prefer to be, you know, slightly knees bent and to a slightly more aggressive stance. But it definitely isn't an aggressive stance in comparison. Even the 390, because it was a bit cramped, you could definitely feel that it was, you know, you're kind of crouching into a very aggressive stance, which actually suited some kind of riding when you were doing off-road. For the most part, it meant that you weren't quite relaxing on the bars, which isn't ideal for off-road. Whereby this one, as soon as you're in a standing position, you can kind of switch between being very relaxed and just like, you know, directing the bike and letting the bike do what it wants to do, or ducking down a little bit, getting into a more aggressive stance, taking control of things when you're getting your speed up, and it also does that really well. So the ergonomics are very good, and I think work out of the box, which is kind of a relief, because I don't really like you know, having to put bar risers on is kind of fine, but then you end up having to change the length of cables and levers usually and things like that, and just messing around with it, which I couldn't be bothered with. So I like that it's, you know, thought through. They're not making any real major compromises. It's a reflection of the, let's say, the 790 that came before and the 890 as it now is. Yeah, I'm kind of going slow just for... Yeah, I'm not really feeling, I'm feeling very confident, or, you know, reasonably confident. It's definitely confidence inspiring. The balance, you know, the balance again, it just balances so good. And it just wants to stay upright, you know, keep a little bit of momentum, you know, don't get too freaked out, don't go too heavy on any input. And it's just like, it'll just bumble through, it'll just like stay over, just kind of not quite glide, but go over the terrain very easy. And overall, I think it's perfect for a bit of rough roading, not necessarily straight off-road. One thing, I suppose, not that I've gone in here, but one thing in the UK especially is, if you're on a very tight kind of green lane, basically, with a bit of tightness on either side, like you might find that it's a bit wide, which is going to a bigger bike, not having a little enduro or whatever it is, it's one of the problems, or more like Honda CRF, something like that. Quite narrow. This one, you'd be starting to worry about your tanks kind of cramming in between two small points in a big rubbit or something like that, which even found in there. You find